Anna University. Now, I invite Ms. Archana, Head of the PG Department of English, to introduce the resource person.
A pleasant day to all. I'm elated to introduce a resource person for the session, Dr. Veena Selvam, Assistant Professor of English in the College of Engineering, Anna University, Chennai. She is a multi-talented personality with rich teaching experience in premier institutions like the Anna University and the IIT Madras. Earning her MA degree with a gold medal along with the Best Outgoing Student Award from Stella Maris College, Chennai, Dr. Veena pursued her doctoral research in the field of discourse analysis and literature at the Indian Institute of Technology, Madras. Dr. Veena Selvam is also a research supervisor and has helped two of her research scholars complete their PhD, and two scholars are under her guidance right now. She has also guided the research of 12 MPhil scholars in the past, having authored numerous scholarly articles, books, textbooks, and critical essays in anthologies. She also owns the credit of being a creative writer. She has been invited as a resource person to institutions of repute and recognition. Her passion towards English language teaching and her personality as an accessible teacher is evident through her stint as language trainer for the children belonging to the humble and economically weaker sections of the society. This is truly a hallmark quality of being a great teacher and a true scholar. In addition to all this, she has won many awards and accolades, and her interest in language is evident through her knowledge in Sanskrit, French, and Spanish. We are very happy to have such an illustrious professor and language enthusiast among us today. Hearty welcome to you, ma'am.
Thank you, madam.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, we are proceeding to the most anticipated and exciting time of the session. I'm pleased to hand over the session to the resource person.
Thank you, Esther. Should I turn on my camera?
Yes, ma'am.
I have turned on my camera, but I don't know whether I'm visible.
No, ma'am. We are not able to see you. Yes, ma'am. Now, yes.
Good morning to everyone present here. You have been listening to many experts on use of technology and so on for 1 day, 2 days, the past couple of days.
Today is the second day, ma'am.
Today is the second day, right? Okay, I have been invited to speak about blogging. Let me confess, I really don't know in what way I qualify to talk about blogging, because I think my only claim is I have used a couple of blogs in my class, and I have participated. I have participated as a researcher in a project which used blogs to teach writing. I think those are the only two things that really qualify me to talk about it. Apart from that, I'm not an expert in technology. So let me confess all that right away. So do not expect me to give you any, great insights into how to use blogs and how to, set up blogs and what are the best ways to, use blog as a technology. So I thought I would focus more on the advantages of blogging as a, blogging when it is used as a tool to teach writing. What are the advantages? How it could help improve writing in ways that we cannot really emphasize on when we do pen and paper writing on using pen and paper in a classroom. So that I thought would be the focus of my talk today. I'm hoping it will not be entirely a talk, that there will be some interaction and there will be, some inputs from your side, because, like I said, I'm not an expert, and I'm hoping to learn from a lot of other people who have experimented with these things and who can share their own experiences. Right. So before I actually, it's customary in these kind of sessions to share a PPT. I also have one. But then before that, I would like to put a couple of questions to all of you, so that, I'm not the only one who's talking all the time. So we can get you also to start off a conversation or a dialogue. So, very simple question: what is a blog? You don't have to wait to be invited. You can just unmute and tell us. I hope that is possible, madam.
Yes, ma'am, it is possible, ma'am.
Right.
It is a website where we can post our writings
Okay.
or any article writing like that.
Okay. It's a website where you can post your writings, articles, etc. Okay. Gauri Shankari says a platform to share our creative ideas and views. Okay. Anyone else? Any other ideas on what is a blog? Okay, reflective writing. Right. Any other views? Any other ideas? Collaborative writing. Okay. Used to write articles that are subjective. Okay. A platform to publish ideas. Right. Okay. Web blogging is a personal space to express our ideas and thoughts. Good. Srinidhi says this. Okay. Are you all posting in the chat because you're not able to unmute and talk, or you don't want to do it? I would be happier to hear people say something, give some ideas, instead of just reading out what is put in the chat box, although that is also fine.
Participants, you can unmute and answer. You were allowed to unmute and answer in this platform.
Yes, madam. Okay, a platform used to make writing interesting. All right.
Also for creative writing, ma'am.
Creative writing. Okay. All right. So if we remove the technology element and we go back to writing per se, okay, you may have heard of the earlier journal writing, right? All of you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So journal was an earlier form of writing where people wrote in a journal or a diary. It was an activity that helped people put down their thoughts in black and white, put down their ideas in black and white, to express their emotions in black and white. So it was an activity that helped a lot of people get, some kind of focus. So there were people who took this up as a major activity before the advent of technology. There are so many people who would maintain these journals or diaries. In fact, there are quite a few literary pieces which use the format of the journal or the diary. Am I right? You may have heard of these things. The most famous 20th century, the Diary of Anne Frank. You may have heard of this.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so journaling or keeping a diary, maintaining a diary is a very popular activity, very widespread, prevalent kind of activity. Many people who maintain these journals, these diaries, and who put down all their thoughts in a diary, so that they could crystallize those ideas that were crowding their head, so to speak. So what does that have to do with the blog? So why did we speak about diary when we started the conversation about blogs? Any idea?
Good morning, madam. Probably
Yes,
for
yes.
recording, madam. Recording purpose.
Okay, probably for recording purposes. Right. I think I will share my PPT because I haven't. Yes. Yes, madam.
Ma'am, you asked about the link between diary and blogging, isn't it?
Yes.
Was your question, ma'am?
Yes, that's my question.
Uh, I feel that both can be used for personal reflection, as many of these candidates had said, for a personal outpour of emotions or a record of events, etc.
Right. All right. So if you look at, an online definition, a dictionary definition, a blog is actually a web log. So web log, shortened to a blog. In other words, it is very simply, um, you know, a journal which is kept online. Instead of writing using a quill or a pen on a piece of paper or a diary, you key in a virtual space. That's the simple difference between, or the simple connection between a journal and a blog. So it's a web blog, a regular record. So these are some of the definitions that I picked up from the internet, a regular record of our thoughts, opinions, or experiences that we put on the internet for other people to read. So I think many of you already spoke about this, where you share your ideas, your opinions, your thoughts, your experiences, and you put it down. Possibly, probably the only difference between a journal, the way we understand it, a diary or a journal, and a blog. A journal is generally, or a diary is generally meant for um, personal writing, where you generally don't share it with other people, whereas you use a blog, an online virtual diary or a journal. It will likely be seen by other people. So I guess there are provisions in the internet where you can make it private, you don't have to share it, you can keep it like a journal. But generally, the purpose of putting down something in a blog is to enable other people to read what you have put down. Are you all able to see my slides? I'm trying to put it on
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
slideshow.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, but I'm trying to put it on slideshow. It doesn't seem to be moving to the slideshow mode. Right. Yet another difference between the blog and the journal or the diary is that when I maintain a journal or a diary, all I can do is put down words. At best, if I'm good at drawing, I can probably draw a few things. I can probably um, use my journal paper to do some doodling. Okay, these are all things that are possible in a journal. But in a blog, there are other possibilities also, so where you can insert pictures, PowerPoint slides, audio, video, hyperlinks to other blogs, hyperlinks to other websites. So you can invite people to share, to read not only your own ideas, but you can also invite them to share things that you have read or that you have come across that you thought were relevant or enjoyable or something that you can relate to. And you can invite other people to share these things. So there is a certain communal element about the blog, which is probably missing in a journal or a diary. And one other thing, of course, when I started using blogs, I started using them very, very late, only 4 or 5 years back. Uh, Original hesitation to use blogs was that I thought I'm not technically sound. I don't have any technical expertise, so how do I use a blog? It's not my cup of tea. So then we discovered, that it doesn't really need much of technical expertise. We are users, so we can. There are a lot of sites, websites, which allow you to set up a blog with very minimal expertise. You only need to click a few buttons, and you can get your page, your blog. Okay, and we also discovered, this was part of a study. So I participated, like I told you earlier, I also participated in a study, in a research study, where we used blogs to, I collaborated with a fellow researcher. I think you must have heard her yesterday, Dr. Sujata. So both of us, we collaborated on blogging to teach writing. So there we did a bit of research on what are blogs and how do we use blogs and so on. We came across this division. There are so many types of blogs. So it's not just a personal journal or not just a personal diary. It could also be, divided into different other types. It could also be used by other uh, bodies to do various things, to achieve various things. So institutions can maintain their blogs, where they put down all their activities and things like that. So institutional blogs, teacher blogs. Okay, so teachers can have blogs about their experiences, about their classroom experiments, and so on. Learner blogs also. Learners also can do the same thing, put down their learning experiences. It need not necessarily be only language learning. It could also be any kind of learning. So learner blogs, class blogs, where there is a group. Okay, there is a teacher, there are learners, everyone participates in the blogging as an activity. And project blogs. Today we have commercial blogs. This division was made in 2010, but today, 10 years, 12 years down the line, people have woken up to blogging as a commercial activity. Okay, just like YouTube videos, you can also have blogs which make a lot of money. You can put down, review blogs, all kinds of blogs where, you are noticed more, you invite more attention, you can earn money. So there are commercial blogs also. Today we are not talking about the commercial blog. That is a completely different activity. We're not going to talk about that. What we are interested in is the class blog, at least what I was interested in and what we experimented with in our project, in our research, was the class blog. Now, as I said, class blog has two sets or groups of participants. There could be a teacher or a few teachers who collaborate on the blog, and there would be students who would also be able to access the same blog. Okay, and there is a communal element where there are all these people who are collaborating on the writing activity and who are using the class blog to make the writing a kind of different kind of activity than just me, my paper and pen. Yes. Yeah, I can
Candidates,
hear.
please mute yourself. Ms. Aishwarya Lakshmi. Ms. Aishwarya Lakshmi, please
Yes,
mute
yes.
yourself.
All right. Okay, so we have spoken. I have given a short introduction to blogging. So now I've also told you about the, the communal element, the shared element in the blog. Now, if you can give a few thoughts on how that can be exploited to teach writing. Many of you are teachers. I think most of you are teachers. So if you can share some ideas, then I will not be talking all the time. I will need a little, time to listen to other people also. So we can share some ideas about how we can use the communal element of blogs to teach writing. That would be a good discussion. Would anyone like to share some ideas?
Ma'am, to me personally, I think blogs are used to reflect upon ourselves, like to reflect upon our own language. So I think in that case, a student might correct the errors they make. So it would help them that way, ma'am.
Okay, that's an excellent point you have made. You have kind of hit the nail on the head, correcting the errors that students make. So, I wanted to introduce the idea of the process approach to writing. So, straight away, Soumya has given me a break, but others can also contribute. Yes, would anyone else like to? Hmm. Okay, right. Akshaya, you are a learner. You are a teacher. Okay. What kind of blog do you maintain? No, no. I mean, what kind of blog? Is it a personal blog? Is it, some kind of journal of your experiences, or is it a technical blog? Is it a food blog? Is it an entertainment blog, review blog? What kind of blog do you maintain? A travel blog? Hmm. 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 And where do you study? Okay. Kartika, in that case, I should ask you also to talk. What was the intention behind starting the blog? What did you hope to achieve?
Good morning, ma'am. So the intention was to make my learners well engaged learners, ma'am. I found a kind of disconnect between me and my learners because I joined newly in the college,
Okay.
and it was more for the engagement purpose and to improve their writing.
All right. So, how did you think a blog would help you engage the learners better than a classroom
Um,
context?
no, it was on my personal level. I approached the students. I mean, maybe not in the right way. I was assuming that they were all postgraduate students and they would know a lot. And then I got like really upset when they were not contributing. So maybe I was not doing my part properly. So that's when I thought, okay, I should take a step back and I should think what would be more engaging for them. And get to know them better. as individuals. So that made me to choose blogging as one of the activity, and that went on well. And they understood me, I understood them, and they also understood each other. So there was a kind of what to say. I mean, a lot of understanding that went about, and it made them more engaged and more responsible kind of all became very conscious writers, because and it was not, when they wrote, it was not only Kartika who was reading it as a teacher, the others were also reading, and
Right.
their own peers were reading. So that actually gave them an additional what to say, um, I mean, an incentive or some kind of a motivation to write better.
Thank you, Kartika. Are there more of these students, Akshaya, more of your classmates here who can also share their experiences about blogging and how it made them, pay more attention to their writing?
Good morning, ma'am. I'm
Yes.
Takshira,
Yes, Akshaya.
Kartika ma'am student.
Mm.
Blogs actually made me to reflect on myself. Like it made me um be an autonomous writer as well as a thinker. When it is actually it is a self-introduction blog, ma'am gave the assignment of being writing a self-introduction blog. When I was asked to express myself in class, I get only meager 5 minutes, right? So I can't express totally. When ma'am told to submit it as a blog, I had the time to reflect on myself, and I felt that freedom where I can express the way I want. It can be in a formal way or in informal way. So I find blogging to be an interesting sector to develop our writing skills as well as our language skills along with our cognitive skills, I suppose. Thank
Mm.
you, ma'am.
Thank you, Takshara. Akshaya, Takshara, good ideas that you have shared. Okay, Gauri Shankari has said personal blog allows the students to shed their fear and express their views freely, right? Okay, so we understand from the feedback and from the ideas that these people have shared that blogging somehow yes, nowadays students are more tech savvy and give assignment on blogs helps them. Giving assignment on blogs helps them to express their idea and to become creative writers. Right. So the difference I think we are able to notice in a classroom when you ask them to either speak or write, children, students do not have sufficient time to reflect, and there is an audience element. There is an element of an audience which is looking at them immediately, and which is probably passing judgment on them. So that lack of time probably inhibits students from expressing themselves too freely. Whereas the blog introduces the element of a delayed audience, which is true of any writing. When we write and we send it to somebody, you can always pay more attention to composing your writing. Take a little more time to choose the words and to put it down in writing, and then share it with others who will read it after a delay. You will, of course, even if you can access the blog immediately the minute you post it, because people are going to take a little time to read it. So there is the element of delay which helps me choose my words. That's what Takshara said, that I had time to pay attention to what I was going to write. I think that's what Akshaya also said, that I could reflect on my own writing and then write about it. So that those are the two elements that I think, those are the two differences that we see in the classroom, between the classroom and the blog. Another thing that Kartika spoke about was engagement. You find it more interesting to express yourself on the blog than in a classroom. Probably, why do you think students are more engaged in a blog than in a classroom? I would like students of Kartika to respond to this. Apart from Takshara and Akshaya, then we ask some of the other students.
Ma'am,
Yes.
This is Sheetal Kartika ma'am student.
Yes.
For me personally, I was engaged more in vlogs because it helped me be more creative. I enjoyed being creative, and so writing vlogs was the best way for me to express the content very creatively as possible. So yeah, that is why
Sheetal,
I was engaged in it.
good. I
Yes, ma'am.
understand what you're trying to say, Sheetal, but I would like you to explain a little more in, in a comprehensible way. What makes you, or what triggers your creativity in a blog? What is it about a blog that triggers your creativity that, it doesn't get triggered in the class?
Ma'am, in blogs you have the option of adding interesting images,
Hmm.
uh, adding colorful fonts.
Hmm.
Uh, I also added a video. I remember I wanted to cater to the both kind of audience, those who like reading and those who like watching. So I
Right.
made a blog and a vlog.
Right.
So
Interesting.
and with a vlog, I thought I can put my funny side.
Hmm.
So I was funnier in the vlog and I was formal in the blog.
Right. Good.
Yes, ma'am.
Interesting. Thank you, Sheetal. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So all of you have given me very many ideas to, um, go ahead with. Anyone else? I don't only want to restrict the floor to Kartika students. I'm sure there are other people who have experimented with blogs. So if you can share, if your students are here and they would like to share, please do share.
Ma'am, I'm also a Kartika ma'am student, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
So what interested me more was that it was during the pandemic. We had only online classes,
Hmm.
and we were kind of bored of the online classes. So when Kartika ma'am introduced blog to us, we felt it was very interesting to us because it was something new that we haven't known before. Of
Right.
course, we had blog in UJ as well, but it was not as we were not into it as we were in UG,
Hmm.
in PG. So in that way, it was really interesting, and we all of us, I think, almost all the students got engaged into it really well.
Right. Right. Good. Thank you, Soumya. Right. Shahreen Niaz also says, I would like to add that blogs are open to a large number of audiences as opposed to journals and print media only. Very true. The idea that you can reach more number of people can read what you have written in the blog makes you feel at the same time accelerated because you can reach that many more people, but at the same time you also feel responsible because when so many people are reading, when so many people are looking at what I'm writing, I will need to be more responsible. I will need to state what I want to state in a certain way, that appeals to all those people who read it. So I guess these are elements. So good. Thank you very much. All of you have shared so many ideas. I have just tried to put down some of them as points in my PPT, which I will continue to share now. Right. I hope it's visible. PPT.
Yes, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so most of you, like I said, you have given these ideas about writing and how blogging contributes to certain things, certain elements in your writing. So I have put these down as the process approach to writing. I'm sure many of you already know what is the process approach to writing. So there are two approaches. For those of you who are not very familiar with it, I will just sum up for you what is this process approach to writing. So there is, on the one hand, there is what is known as the product approach. All right. So when I joined my department, there was a head of the department who said, "I want this job to be done, this final something to be there on my table." So it could be a report or something like that. So how do I do it, ma'am? How am I expected to do it? I don't know. Okay, you can do whatever you want. You can. She used this very colorful thing in Tamil. This very colorful proverb in Tamil. நீ குடிஞ்சு குத்தலாம் நிமிந்து குத்தலாம் எனக்கு வேண்டியது நெல்லு. Do you understand what I'm saying? Everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So it's not how you go about it that's important for me. For me, what is important is the product. Okay. So when you use that kind of approach to writing, so I want you to write an essay for me. I don't care how you write it, but I want you to write an essay for me. So when I adopt that approach, what is important is the final product. Okay. So how do I teach this process of how do I teach this writing an essay? I show you samples. All right, I show you 2 or 3 samples. So I want you to write an essay. I show you 2 or 3 samples and I say, this is the kind of writing I want. But how do you get there? How do you write something that is similar is not something that is focused in the product approach. All right. So in the product approach, you are given the final product, you are given what you are expected to achieve finally, and then you are expected to understand how to get there on your own. You're expected to figure out, okay, how to get there on your own, how to write it on your own. So there are some people who will probably read the samples given, who will probably read more on the samples, who will probably look at, different samples and try to arrive at an understanding how to write, and some people who might even succeed in doing it. All right, so there are some people who write successfully even when they go through the product approach. So they have figured out how great people have written, how these wonderful samples of writing actually work as pieces of writing. They have figured out, they have managed to figure it out, and they follow the same approach to writing, and they manage to write well. But this is the kind of thing that many people, the majority of the students or the learners are not able to achieve, because I have the target in front of me, but I do not know how to get to that target. I do not know how to proceed in the process, all right, of writing and how to reach that final product. So this is a problem and many students face, the majority of the students, majority of the learners face this problem. And this is where we have something called the process approach to writing. So I don't care what the final product is. Okay, the final product might be anything. You could write an essay, you could write a letter, you could write any of those things. But what I am interested in is the process. Okay, so I'm going to help you go through the process of writing, then the final product will happen. The final product, if you go through this process, you will end up doing something which is like one of the samples that I have done or that I have seen. All right, you will reach there. So this is the process approach to writing. So when we talk about the product approach, we have said students or learners. So if I give you a product and I tell you this is what I want you to do, what are the things that you will do in order to get there? Students, you can tell me. How will you write? When you're given a sample and then you are asked to write, what are the things that you will do in order to write something similar? Yes? Okay, suppose I want you to write an essay for me on comparing online class with offline class. All right, I want you to write a comparative essay comparing online class and offline class. Okay, I show you a few samples, comparative essays on compare and contrast. So I show you a few samples. I show you one sample on comparing hometown with some other town. Okay, hometown with city or village and city. And then I show you another sample comparing, say, comparing, what shall we say, comparing, okay, formal writing versus informal writing, something like that. I show you a couple of samples. And then I ask you to write a comparison between online writing and offline writing, online classes and offline classes. So using the samples, how will you write? Would someone like to tell me? Mm, mm, mm. Okay. All right. So I try to analyze the format of the comparative essay. I try to get an idea of the comparative format, and then I try to fit in my points into that same format. Am I right? So if you are given a product, you are given a few samples, and then you are asked to reproduce something which is similar, you will simply substitute, your ideas in place of the ideas in that particular product. Now, this has a few dangers. Suppose I give you two samples and two of them are very different. They don't have the same format. Then what is the problem? Right. Right. All right. So when you are giving two samples, of the product, and then you are asked to follow one of the samples, then you will have to make a choice. All right. You'll have to make a choice, and you will have to write your own comparison, your own ideas in one of the formats given. Okay, so that is one way of doing it. Now, this is a problem with the product approach because, like I said, some students may be smart in figuring out from the sample itself what kind of format should I follow in the example that I gave, the comparative essay. But then if I use the process approach, all right, so if I use the process approach and I lead my students on through the process of writing, okay, how do I write a compare and contrast essay? All right. So then we start with the first thing. How do we compare two things? All right. And then I lead them through the process. So how do we compare two things? Just as a, as a going off on a little bit of a tangent. How do we compare two things? Suppose I ask you to compare, take the same thing, online classes and offline classes. How would you compare the two?
Madam, what is similar about both the things or what is different about both the things?
Right, good. So I first start with making a list of similarities and making a list of differences. Am I right? Right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Right. Collect ideas. Okay. This is somebody has put down in the Beryl has put down in the chat box. Collect ideas. All right. We collect ideas. I hope that's an answer to the question that I had asked. How do you follow the product and write your own? So you need to collect ideas. Okay, good. You make a list of the similarities between the two products and the differences between, say, if I ask you to compare online and offline classes, you make a list of similarities and you make a list of differences. Okay. What are the similarities between online and offline classes? Anyone like to venture? No one, no? I think all of us have gone through online and offline classes. Okay, Anuradha says faculty is the mentor in both the cases. Okay, so online, offline classes both have teachers. Okay, then any other similarities?
Ma'am, the
Yes.
class can be prevented from digression, ma'am, in online classes, ma'am. Whereas in offline classes, the teacher has to respond as per the students' emotions, ma'am, or the expressions they give in the class when something is said. While in online classes, the class can be finished sooner, ma'am.
Okay, so you notice how I'm not blaming Sheetal, okay, but you notice how when we have the product approach, we spoke about how we need to make a list of similarities and a list of differences. When I asked you what are the similarities, we started with the similarities. Faculty is the mentor in both the cases, and then Sheetal made this point about the difference between the two. Do you notice the danger of using the product approach? That's what I'm trying to point out. Yes. Yeah, am I making sense to everyone? Or am I speaking something which doesn't reach you? Okay, Anuradha. Yes, the faculty is still in control of how to conduct the classes and the materials to be given. All right, that's true. So the problem with the product approach is when I give a product and I ask you to follow the same product, to use the same, I give you a sample and then I ask you to follow the same thing. So it takes a lot of effort to figure out exactly how to go about doing this. Whereas if I adopt the process approach, all right, I lead my students on towards how to do it. So the first thing I would do in a process approach when I teach compare and contrast is, okay, how do we compare two things? Okay, I pick up two things, I need to compare them, I need to make a list of similarities and a list of differences. And I tell them, see, it's good to use a tabular column. All right, so I have two columns, one for this and one for the other. And then I have a list of parameters. All right, so when I tell my students parameters and then I ask them what are parameters? What are parameters?
Criteria, ma'am.
Criteria, right. The basis on which you are carrying out the comparison. So when we say yes to evaluate. So when we say compare online classes and offline classes, and then if I leave it open, then students have to figure out how to see the differences and the similarities. But if I use the process approach and I tell them draw up a set of parameters. So I have students presence and absence in the class. All right, so if that is a parameter, student participation, and then teacher faculty control, okay, and then interaction, transfer of information. So we make a list of parameters. So I'm setting in motion a process. Okay, how do I compare? So I'm setting in motion a process. I'm telling my students how to go about actually making the comparison. So the first thing we are going to do is we are going to draw up a set of parameters, or we are going to set up draw up a set of criteria based on which we are going to compare the two. Okay, so online and offline classes. So we conduct a we come up with a set of parameters and we ask our students to draw up a set of parameters and then come up with comparisons. So then based on those, their ideas are channelized and they go about the process with a little more ease. All right, so am I making sense to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. So I'll go back to sharing my PPT again. Right. So the most important thing about the blog, about using a blog to teach writing, is that it facilitates using the process approach to writing. So you can focus on the process of writing. Already many students spoke about how in the blog we were able to express ourselves, we were able to put in some thought in our writing, we were able to edit and change what we were writing, we were able to get feedback on what we wrote, and then we were able to write, right? So all this is part of the process of writing rather than the final product. So blogging enables us to focus on the process of writing rather than on the final product. So basically, when we say process approach to writing, it implies that there are multiple drafts. Nobody can get the final product, say the example that we just gave, a comparative essay, in one shot. Nobody, not even Shakespeare, not Wordsworth, no one, even the greatest writer on this in this world, on this earth, could not have written whatever they wrote, the great books or the novels or the essays or the whatever pieces of work they wrote. Nobody could have got it right in the first shot. So when we compel our students to when we adopt the product approach and tell them you need to write a perfect essay, and then we actually give them time in the class. Okay, I'm giving you 15 minutes, write the essay. We expect them to achieve something which, like I said, not Shakespeare, not Wordsworth, not Kalidasa, nobody could have done perfectly in the first the first time that they wrote. All right, so we're expecting them to do the impossible. So we need to understand that no piece of writing can be perfect in the first draft. All right, so it means that the process approach needs to emphasize that there are multiple drafts and it's all right to make mistakes. So when you make mistakes, when you do things that are not quite right, you can get feedback for each draft and then improve on the writing. So this is one of the basic differences between the process and the product approaches. And why I have brought in this is the blog. When you use the blog to teach writing, it means that the blog facilitates this approach. So you can make a blog entry, somebody can comment on it, and you can redo or you can rework whatever content you have written based on the feedback. Is this clear to everyone? What I'm trying to drive at?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, so the focus is in the process approach to writing, the focus is on the ideas. So rather than on the grammar or the accuracy or the sentence structure or all those things or the format, those are not very important in the process approach. They will come. It will happen. Okay, as you do multiple drafts, it will happen. The things will improve, things will change. But the focus is more on the ideas. What are the ideas that you need to express? So that is the most important thing in writing. And by encouraging students to blog, this is something that we focus on. We focus on what the writer has to say. All right. And we also give feedback based on the ideas. Writing needs to be revised, changed, redone, edited. Okay, so there is no, way in which you can get a piece of writing out in one shot, like I already pointed out. Nobody can write the perfect first draft. It's impossible. All right. Although there are some writers who claim this. I remember Arundhati Roy claimed that whatever she wrote was the first draft. When she wrote God of Small Things and somebody interviewed her, she said, I don't re-breathe a breath. So writing was like a breath and I don't re-breathe a breath. But that is I don't know. I don't know whether to I don't know what to say of Arundhati Roy, but then that is an exception. That is an outlier. That's not the case with the majority of people. In fact, I remember reading an article about Wordsworth and about how Wordsworth wrote some of his poems. Although Wordsworth emphasized on spontaneity, spontaneous recollection of the overflow of emotions. That's what he spoke about when he wrote, when he talked about his writing. But there were people who discovered that there were multiple drafts of his poetry, how he kept revising and changing and redoing and editing whatever he wrote. So obviously, even a Wordsworth did not get it right the first time. He needed to revise, he needed to change, he needs to redo, edit. Okay, he needed to chop off a lot of things and redo them. Because there's nothing wrong with writing something wrong in the first time and then redoing it. There's nothing wrong in revising. In fact, that is the best thing to do. So the blog facilitates this kind of writing where you write, you get feedback, somebody notices what you have written, somebody comments on it, and then you can rewrite, revise, you can change, you can redo, you can edit. Okay. So that is something which happens in the blog, which is very difficult in the classroom writing activity. It can be done, but it is a very laborious process where the teacher when you pass down a sheet of paper, teacher has to read and then write with red ink. And that red ink itself makes you, very wary of reading it. Okay, because that red ink somehow symbolizes, this power that the teacher has to evaluate you and to, mark you for what you have done. So that is a very disturbing element in the classroom writing activity, which can be overcome in the blog. So in the blog, the feedback comes in the form of not only the teacher's feedback, but also peer feedback. Okay? Other people like you are also reading it. They are also commenting on what you have written. All right, and immediate feedback. So in classroom writing, the teacher has to take the papers back, write, and then bring them. After a while, there is a delay. Okay, and then you probably forget what you have written. So these things can be overcome in the blog because what you have written is right there and comment right below it. So you can relate the comment and the piece of writing, and you can redo what you have written. So these are some of the advantages of blogging in the process approach to writing. Sorry, I meant to go to the next slide. Right. So blogs, it's not like blogs have never been used in education. Like I said, teacher blogs, student blogs, class blogs have all been experimented with. There are a lot of people who have focused on using blogs in education. So many studies have focused on the blog as a self-reflective tool. I think many of you spoke about this, how it helps you reflect on yourself, on your writing, on your ideas, on your thoughts, on your emotions, so on. They have studied the impact of blogs on grammar. Okay, blogging may encourage a little bit of informal writing. So does it have any impact on grammar? It is also a tool for autonomous learning, where I learn, like many of you said, you reflected on your own learning and you were able to learn by yourself. There were many things that you went and found out and you learned how to do things. So it is a tool for autonomous learning, and many studies have focused on this. Many researchers have examined the blog as a tool for autonomous learning. For motivation, like I think Sheetal spoke about motivation, about how the the blog with its novelty and its combination of pictures, voice, vlogs, a combination of many media motivates the learner to contribute, to write on the blog, unlike a piece of paper which is drab, dry, dull. Okay, I don't feel motivated enough to pick up a pen. It involves a lot of effort to put down my ideas in pen and paper. Whereas the blog, it motivates me to write because there are interesting color combinations, there are interesting pictures, there is a possibility of including video, audio, voice. There are a lot of possibilities, lot of creative possibilities. All right, so you yourself spoke about this. So there are studies which are focused on how blogs can motivate the reader, the writer, sorry, the student to blog, and it inculcates a positive attitude. Okay, so there are blogs which inculcate a positive attitude to writing, and there are studies which are focused on individual blogs, the general impact of blogs on language teaching and learning. So there are many studies which have focused on the blog and the blog in education, in teaching.
Excuse me, ma'am.
Yes.
Excuse me, ma'am. This is Kartika, ma'am. Your
Yes,
slide
Kartika.
is not moving, ma'am. The
I
slide
haven't
has
moved
not
the slide.
changed, ma'am.
Now?
Oh, okay. Sorry. Process approach to writing, we are still in that immediate feedback important, the last line of the slide.
Oh, you're still in that slide, is it? Okay, let me stop sharing
Yeah,
and
we are
try.
able to see that, ma'am.
Okay, I'll try and share this again. This is a problem in Google Meet. Let me share my entire screen so that can you now see my screen?
Yes, madam.
Now?
Yes, it's visible,
Yes,
madam.
ma'am. Yes.
Yeah. And can you see all the things that I just spoke about self-reflection, impact on grammar, autonomous learning?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, right. Okay. Um, yeah. So how do we explore the process of writing using blogs? So this is what we were just speaking about. I have just tried to put it all together. So class blogs were created, which included writing. So you need to write, you need to post in the class blog, but you also need to react to what others wrote. Okay? So there is that interactive element where people are reacting to what other people write. So we are speaking about what I spoke about initially, the communal element in the blog. So reacting to what other people wrote. So then there is the element of teacher feedback. So teacher reacts, peer feedback, where other students react. So you are getting feedback not from one source, but from multiple sources, and revising based on the comments. So revised writing. So we tried this in our blog. Like I said, I was involved in a research project where we did blogging to teach writing. So we did this as part of the research project where we created a class blog and where we had these kind of activities. So yeah, these are the class blogs that I have tried out. The blog that I am talking about, which was part of the research project, is the last one. Even before that, I had tried out class blog. I teach a course called science fiction. So every year I have a batch of students who enroll for this particular course, science fiction, and we use the class blog to examine concepts in science fiction, to do a bit of writing in science fiction. So these are some of the class blogs that I have used. Yeah.
ஜாலியா பாட்டு கேட்டுட்டு எல்லாரும் நிம்மதியா மியூட் பண்ணிட்டேன்.
Okay, can I move on? Okay, I have shown you some screenshots of what we did in the sci-fi blog. All right, so I give them some idea. So this was an activity where I gave them, we had a class discussion and we spoke about how science fiction can actually contribute to actual science. Okay, so I asked them in the class blog to post on inventions which were inspired by science fiction. All right, so these are some of the responses. I have particularly picked out these responses because these were from Tamil medium students. All right, so this Kanimozhi was a Tamil medium student who got this, um, she picked this up from somewhere, and she gave us a write up on a particular um, um, invention which was used in her field. So she was from apparel technology. So she wrote this, uh, write up on an invention used in her industry, which is inspired by science fiction. I would like you to take a quick look at this. I picked this particular screenshot because it was an interesting write up by one of my students. Okay, can I move on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and I did give feedback on that, and then she has attempted to contribute more in the class. Okay, this was part of the same activity. This was from another student. Yeah, so I hope you are able to see how students revise some of their ideas, revise some of their. So here we use the blog to revise ideas and not to revise the, the structure or the sentences or the grammar. But we were using this to revise ideas. So we had one bit of write up, and then a little bit of comment, and then the student revising the idea to talk about, to include a bit of information that was not there in the earlier piece of writing. So can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is one way in which student writes, does a write up on some technology which was inspired by science fiction, and then based on the comment, can you tell us about its relevance to the Indian context? So you have revision and you have more information added. All right, so the student is revising his or her, here it's a her, revising her idea about not just talking about the technology, but also its application in a certain context, in our familiar context. So this is how I spoke about the process of writing. So we are not just asking the student to do a write-up, but we are also leading them through the process by giving immediate feedback. Okay, this is another class blog. It's also science fiction, but another class blog where we had students contribute to another discussion. I think in this discussion, I gave them a piece of news about, okay, there was this radio play which was enacted, War of the Worlds. It was enacted on the radio in the 1930s or 40s by Orson Welles, and it created a huge panic in the public. People actually thought that there were aliens invading the earth. So there was a huge panic which it triggered off. So I tried to initiate a discussion on, is it possible to have such things happening today? So there was a whole discussion on uh, false news, about um, false news and about fake news. Okay, so that was a discussion, and there were students who were commenting on fake news in the blog. So I hope you are able to see some of the comments. Okay, so the earlier, this one showed Shraddha, and then the next one shows another student commenting on what the earlier student had written. Are you able to see this? Yeah. So then it kind of made this girl, Aishwarya, think more about what she was writing. So she has picked up all the comments. As many have commented, we are living in a technological world. So if you understand how blogging makes them comment and redo their own, think their own beliefs, their own ideas based on the comments, I hope you are able to notice that progression. Right. Uh, so those were the blogs that I used before my research project. Then 2019, we did this research study on using blogs. So like I said, I collaborated with another researcher, Dr. Sujata, and both of us created class blogs where we had very focused pieces of writing. So we had two class blogs. She had a blog and I had a blog. And we tried to study the impact of blogging on the classes, on the students, on their writing, on their attitude towards writing. So initially when we began, most students, like many of you pointed out, like Sheetal and some of you pointed out, classroom writing is not very interesting. Many students find it boring. Many students find it, not engaging. They're not very interested in doing this. So that was where we also began. Many of our students were also not interested in writing. So we began class blogs. So we did a survey and then we found out what the students' attitude towards writing. And then we started with the class blog and experimented with it on how the class blog can make a difference to students' attitude towards writing and students' engagement with writing. So we had different types of writing in the blog. So we had descriptive writing, we had analytical writing, creative writing, evaluative writing. Okay. So we had descriptive writing where there was something given and students were expected to describe it. And then we had a GD given and students were expected to look at the GD and to watch that video and then analyze, what went on there. And then we had a bit of creative writing where a prompt was given and students were expected to create something out of it. Evaluative writing where they were expected to review something and say which is better or which is worse or which is true or which is false. Okay. And then there was a story prompt to encourage argumentative writing. So where they discussed and argued with each other. And then there was a news article post to apply the elements of reasoning that they had to analyze the article. And there were, of course, teacher-generated materials and posts. So our class blog comprised of different kinds of writing. All right, so it was not just one kind of writing, different kinds of writing, and this was where we found out that there was a difference in the way students approached writing at the beginning of the experiment and towards the end of the experiment. All right, one of the posts which made students very, very engaged. Okay, so we gave them a picture. I think I can show you that picture. I'll stop sharing and I'll show you the blog post itself. I hope I'm making sense to everyone. Right, so this was the experimental blog that we had. Yes. I hope all of you are able to see this.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we gave this picture. So I think one of you said how you can include videos, you can include audios, you can use pictures, you can use a lot of different um, kinds of material. Multimedia. Okay, so you can use multimedia, multiple media to reach out to the students. So those who are interested in reading get one kind of material, and those who are interested in, those who are more visual kind of learners, they can have videos and pictures to base their writing on. And those who are auditory learners can listen. There are audios also which we have posted, where students can listen and then they can react. So this was a blog which created a lot of interest among the students. Learner engagement was at its highest. So we gave this picture and asked them to discuss, is this a murder or a suicide? What do you think from the picture? Would anyone like to hazard a guess? Anyone?
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Really. There is a chance for a murder. Yes, ma'am.
But there is a gun in her own hand. She has fallen with the gun in her hand. So don't you think she might have shot
Maybe
herself?
she wants to protect her own herself, but in the at the time of protecting herself,
So it
she
could be
was
a
killed.
it could be a suicide too, ma'am, since she's holding a gun in her right hand.
Right. Okay. So if you notice, I can show you, I have picked up a couple of screenshots and put them in my PPT. But if you notice, the discussion started with students arguing among themselves, and look at all the things that they have written. I have a strong feeling that the woman has committed suicide, and I'm basing my assumption on the following observations. The lamp has been switched off, and a written note is lying on the table, which could probably be a suicide note. If it was a murder, the murderer wouldn't care about removing her specs and switching off the lamp. Now, did you notice all this?
No, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
See? Suicide note, pen, specs here, and lamp switched off. All right, these are how students began their writing. Okay, if it was a murder, the scene would be messier and the blood would have been scattered all over the scene. The alcohol on the table, empty bottles in the dustbin, and cigarette in her hand, also the packet on the table, are clear indicators of the person being in severe depression. This is a valid and obvious argument to claim that she ended her life. This is one student. And see the reaction. Surya, all your assumptions did make sense, but you pointed out that she might have committed suicide as she was in depression. You brought the alcohol and cigarette into the limelight, but as I mentioned in my comment, now this must be somewhere else. She was a smoker and a person who consumes alcohol due to depression. I don't think being addicted to it would have made her throw the bottle into the dustbin, which no consumer of alcohol would do, or leave her last smoke incomplete. You notice how much students notice. Yes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so the kind of her cigarette is half burnt. So his argument is, if it were a suicide, she would have finished her cigarette and then she would have committed suicide. She wouldn't be halfway through it. No smoker and drinker. So this is a psychological analysis, if you notice. See, and the next student, my perception contradicts all your observations, as I think it's a pre-planned murder. First, drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes are not indications of a person in depression. She might have even been doing it to battle the cold weather and get some warmth, or maybe something else. A murder scene need not be messy if the murderer had planned it well and had shot the victim hiding from a fairly farther distance. Might as well be inside the house. The lamp getting unplugged would have happened accidentally, and the victim would have fallen from the chair after she was shot. Can you notice another comment? Am I to assume that all people who smoke and drink are in depression? What if it was a close range shot? So I hope you are able to notice the point I'm making here. That students in the blog find it a very interesting thing um, to comment on what is given, and then the activity becomes something that is not controlled by the teacher. It becomes an in-class discussion. Do you notice this?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
All right, so this is what I mean by the process writing, the process of writing, where where the there are people here also who have commented in the chat box. Okay, right. The social system forces her to take a step. It's a murder by the society. All right. Interestingly, in the blog, in the class blog, there was a lot of activity based on this particular post. There were other posts also which generated a lot of interest. But what I'm trying to get at is, it's not important for us to understand or to come to the conclusion that this is either a murder or a suicide. That's not important. What is important is the discussion itself, the process of writing itself, where the students discuss with one another, they comment on each other's writing, and they are able to revise their own ideas, they are able to revise their writing, they are able to revise their perspective, their points of view through the blog. So I hope I'm making my point. Okay, I think I'm running a short of time, so I'll just go through the last few things quickly. Right, so like I said, this experiment showed to us that blogging had a lot of advantages. So there is a lot of difference between writing in the blog and writing in the classroom, because the online writing or blogging has better scaffolding. There's a lot of help given, there's a lot of feedback given. The scaffolding comes in the form of pictures, in the form of video, in the form of audio. So there's a lot of scaffolding given in the blog, which is absent in the classroom. And then there is multimedia prompts, which are engaging and which encourage learner participation. Okay, so multimedia prompts, so like we said, different types of learners benefit from the different media that are given. So some benefit from the pictures, some benefit from the video, the audio, the writing, the verbal media, the story prompts. So the different things engage different kinds of learners. And we could design, we could customize the materials that we posted on the blog based on how we gauged our learners and their interests. And another interesting thing was the positive impact on the low English proficient learners. So those who would be very, very hesitant to either talk or write in the class, they became very active, they became very critical, and they became very bold when they wrote in the blog. So they were able to give critical and detailed comments because they had a lot of time. There were comments, feedback on what they were saying, and they had the courage. They picked up the courage to comment on even the better students' ideas. Okay, and students also began to prefer lengthy writing because they were able to type out a lot in the blog. They were able to give a lot of focus on their own writing. They could write at length, and the teacher variable was almost, well, it was not completely absent, but it was significantly lower. The teacher was not the only person who was reading, whereas in classroom writing, the teacher is the only person who is going to get to read what the students write, and everything is for the teacher's eye. So I want to write what the teacher will mark me well on. Okay, so the process-based approach was definitely more effective, and the blended approach was very interesting for the students. So some of the writing they did in the blog, much of the writing they did in the classroom also as follow-up activities. So these things were the advantages that we got from the blog. So I was talking about the low English proficiency learner. This is another low English proficiency learner who has commented on another student the writing of another student um, who picked up the courage to comment on the other person's writing. So this particular student, Leelavati, she was a low English proficiency learner, but she was commenting on another student's writing where she found the courage to write about it. So I hope I have made my point about how blogging has a positive impact on many of the students in the class. They were able to concentrate, like Kartika said, they were engaged in their writing. They were able to write at length, and they were able to use their critical thinking, and they were able to write critically, they were able to write in detail, and they were not too um, intimidated by the presence of the teacher, because it was a shared space where many others were also sharing the same space. They were able to read what other people were writing. They were able to read other people's comments also. So this became an interactive and a process-based approach, which helped the students change their attitude towards writing. So this is all I wanted to say, that blogging for me personally proved to be something that engaged the learners and helped the learners change their attitude towards writing. So if some of you as teachers are also able to try this out, I think that would help. And I think some of it would have, I would be happy if, at least someone benefited from the session.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, may I speak, ma'am? Will you give me
Yes.
just 2 minutes time?
Yes.
Yeah. Myself, I am Y. Solomon Raju, madam. I am assistant professor of English.
Yes, sir.
Yes, today's session is wonderful, ma'am. It's a good presentation given by you. And
Thank you.
moreover, the real-time experiences you faced along with your students in the classroom, everything is good. I would like to share some of my reflections in the classroom also.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. I introduced last year to my engineering students of first year, PCF, madam, peer corrective feedback. I think you might have heard it, peer
Okay.
corrective feedback. Yeah, in that I selected all the students into student writers, one team, and other ones are called mentees, madam, mentees, like mentees and mentors. So initially I conducted a screening test to all the students, and based on their performance, the students will get more than 60% or confined as mentors. They are called student trainers, and remaining people are called mentees. So in my classroom, the textbook, whatever the parts we have introduced first to the mentors. I conducted a 2 hours class like that, how to give the inputs and everything. By learning from us in turn, they had a discussion with all the students. So for that later, they maintain notebooks also. And for example, they have taken dialogue writing and how to write a dialogue and everything. They had a discussion with their mentors. So they need to write as a composition, and next day they have to bring that. These people will correct it.
Right.
So before that, I gave handout on how to correct the errors. Those are called typographical mistakes and syntactical mistakes, and how to form a sentence, basic structure, everything. So they did all these things in a very refined manner, madam. So it scaffolded their learning skills, especially the productive skill called writing. And I asked them to post their reflections in the what we call blog writing, blogspot or Facebook. So we launched one of the name called PCF rating of students. So they felt very happy, madam. And actually, our college belongs to the most regional area. Students are coming from vernacular medium, vernacular background. So they find it very useful.
Right.
So like I introduced this skill, and I wrote a paper also on this. And I published one of the journal, peer-reviewed journal also. That's good, ma'am. That's it.
Yes,
So I would like to
thank you.
share my opinion on this. That's it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, yours
Thank
is
you,
also
sir.
good.
Yes,
ma'am.
sir. Thank you,
And
sir.
I can say only one thing. That this type of technique will impact or enhance the vernacular students, the students who are coming from rural background.
Yes.
They feel a kind of closeness with the language. It
True.
will create a good platform to them to learn the skills.
True.
That's it, ma'am. I'm also
Yes, sir.
ELT scholar, ma'am. Actually, I submitted my thesis on the ELT and reading skills.
Okay.
Reading skills, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
From Andhra University.
Yes, sir.
Right,
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else has anything else to share? Yeah. Yes, Kartika. Thank you. So I'm done.
Yes, ma'am. Participants, do you have any questions? But we are running short of time, but in case there is one more question, we can take it. Ma'am, I do have a doubt. I mean, after you were talking about not worrying about grammar. So to what extent should we stop that? Because as a teacher, I always feel I have to correct the grammar. How do I stop that?
Well, that's a very difficult question because many of us are conditioned to think about grammar. But I guess initially what we need to focus on is so if we break down our writing into different stages, all right, so where we get the content, the ideas, brainstorming, pre-writing, and then content, then putting together the ideas, and then if you can bring editing and grammar correction probably at the end, where you get your students to understand that this is one of the processes, a part of the process, probably that will work. So if your writing is going through multiple stages, so the first stage could be this, and the second stage could be, first stage could be just getting the ideas. Second stage could be composing the writing, and then getting feedback on what the student has written, the content. And then the final stage could be just before, actual final submission or something. If, there you could probably have one draft for editing and grammar correction. Then I think we are not actually ignoring grammatical accuracy, but we are making it one of the stages of the process. I don't know if I have answered your question.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, Jafalda.
Thank you, Pam, for your interesting and engaging session. Now, I would like to call upon Ms. Karthika, Assistant Professor, PT Department of English, to deliver the oath of thanks.
Yeah, so good morning to all of you, and thank you so much, ma'am. It was a privilege to have you here in SDNB Vaishnav College for the second time, and again, completely a different platform, because last time when you were here, you were talking about literature, and here you are talking about ELT, and even though you started off saying that you don't know much about blogging, but you just took us through the process completely, and it was like a very engaging and an interactive session, and it is not something like a theoretical base, and we were able to completely see if at all we choose a medium like a blog to use in a class, how are we supposed to do it? Like even though my students were talking here, I understood that what I did was not process-based approach, it was product-based approach. So I have to work on that area. I can understand completely. Only after listening to you, I'm able to see the difference, because I went by only going by giving samples, and then maybe that was a mistake. And I also understood like we need to think about a blended approach. So yes, blended approach and the process-based approach would be much better for blogging. So thank you so much, ma'am, for giving us so much of information about how to carry it out. Like you literally took us through how to do it in a class. It was like viewing a kind of a lesson plan itself. And I would like to thank all the participants as well for being very interactive and answering the questions. And I also would like to take this opportunity to thank our management for giving us this opportunity to conduct this kind of a program, and the sponsoring institution, Rajiv Gandhi National Institute of Youth Development, for sponsoring and supporting us through in conducting such a kind of a faculty development program. Yes, thank you all. Over to you, Jafalda.
Thank you, ma'am. I thank you all for your energetic participation, and I wish you all a wonderful day. After a short break, the next session will be presented on the title Advanced Technology for Effective Teaching by Dr. P. Beena, Assistant Professor, Department of English, SDNB Vaishnav College for Women. Please join around 11:30 for the next session in Zoom platform, and the session starts at 11:30. Thank you.
Thank you, Esther. Thank you, Kartika, and all the best. Goodbye to everyone.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, participants, ma'am has given the mail ID, her mail ID. In case you have any kind of suggestion and you want to contact the resource person, you can do so. The mail ID is there in the chat box. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, madam. Thank you very much.